Hello everyone, my name is Gajendra Das Sharma and you are watching English, and today we are going to discuss the second part of TGT Entrance Examination NVS that was held in 2014. In this video you will get the comprehensive explanation of all the separate points and options of the questions that were being asked. So let us start the video. So the first question of this second part is, God is referred to as the President of the Immortals in The Paradise Lost, Brave New World, Tess, or The White Devil? And the correct answer is it is in Tess of the D'Urberville that the god is referred to as the President of the Immortals. The phrase occurred at the last of the novel Tess of the D'Urberville by Thomas Hardy. The complete quotation runs like this: Justice was done, and the President of the Immortals, in Aeschylean phrase, had ended his sport with Tess. So Thomas Hardy wanted to say that human beings are just like the puppets or the toys in the hands of the Almighty, the God. Whatever he wishes like, he does. Immortals means the human beings have no substantiality in the mind of or in the eyes of the god. So, in the same way, the destiny played with Tess throughout the novel, and ultimately, God ended her life in an unfortunate way. The moment she was seduced by Alec d'Urberville, the fortune or the destiny of Tess went other way around. She never ever recovered from that mishap. Tess of the D'Urberville has a subtitle, A Pure Woman, Faithfully Presented. So this is the subtitle of Tess of the D'Urberville. The novel was serialized in the graphic in 1891. It came in a book form in 3 volumes in 1891 as well. So initially it was serialized and then it came in the book form, but that in 3 volumes. And then in 1 volume came finally in 1892. The book is divided into partitions, and partitions are called phases. And there are 7 partitions, means there are 7 phases in the book. So sometimes the novel is divided into parts, other times it is divided into scenes. So this particular novel is divided into 7 phases. So two things have to be remembered: phases and phases. How many phases are there? 7 phases. Unlike most of the novels which are divided into parts. Next question is, A Vindication of the Rights of Women was published in the year 1802, 1805, 1793, or it was 1792. And the correct answer is it was published in 1792. It is a long book and it contains 87,000 words. The book has also a subtitle, A Vindication of the Rights of Women, with strictures on the political and moral subjects. So this is the complete title, A Vindication of the Rights of Women with strictures on political and moral subjects. The book was written by British proto-feminist Mary Wollstonecraft. This work is one of the earliest works of feminist philosophy. Earliest work of feminist philosophy. So if we talk about the earliest examples of feminist philosophy, so this work comes to our view, A Vindication of the Rights of Women. This work came as a stark contrast or reaction against the adage of the time, the philosophy of the time, or the ideology of the time that women should not receive a formal or rational education. So it came as a sharp reaction. Vindication is justification of the rights of women. So she fought for the rights of women as far as rational education is concerned. She argues that women's education ought to match their position in society, and they are essential to the nation because they raise its children and could not act as respected companions to the husbands. So, as far as they're getting or they're receiving rational education is concerned, she gives that or she suggests that women, as they raise the children of the nation, so she should receive some formal or rational education as well. Earlier, women were given only religious education. The rational education, the education of science and technology and other logics were restricted to the male. So many battles were fought, after which in 1832 there came a reform bill. And in that reform bill of 1832, there came the reform for the education of women. Next question. The Vanity of Human Wishes is a poem by Dr. Johnson, a play by Dr. Johnson, a novel by Anthony Trollope, or an essay by Dr. Johnson. So, Vanity of Human Wishes is a poem by Dr. Johnson. It also has a subtitle, The Tenth Satire of Juvenal, and it was written in the imitation of the satires of Juvenal, particularly the 10th satire. So, this is the important fact. The poem is in 368 lines in closed rhyming couplets, which are also called heroic couplets. It was published in 1749. Importantly, this is the very first work of Dr. Johnson to have his name on it. Prior to it, Dr. Johnson published some of the works, but he did not mention his own name on the works. Vanity of Human Wishes was the very first work on which Dr. Johnson's name was printed. It focuses on human futility and humanity's quest for greatness, and this is the characteristics of Juvenal's satire. But at the same time, the poem concludes that Christian values are important to living properly. So it emphasizes the importance of philosophy over politics. Apart from this poem, Dr. Johnson imitated Juvenal in London in 1738. The poem, The Vanity of Human Wishes, demonstrates the complete inability of the world and of worldly life to offer genuine or permanent satisfaction. So he has tried to satirize the ways of the world. The world is so much materialistic, the people are so much materialistic, they are engrossed in materialism, and then the ways of the world, they do not offer the solace or the satisfaction. By solace and satisfaction, Dr. Johnson refers to the religious one. That's why he wants the moral values to be imbibed in life above everything. The kind of life that was being led in 18th century, that was snobbish life, that was fake life, that was based on superficiality, that was based on hypocrisy of the social values. So he satirized these social hypocrisy or vanity or the snobbery of the social people, human beings. Next question. The Treasure Island is written by Daniel Defoe, R.L. Stevenson, Swift, or John Bunyan. So it was R.L. Stevenson who wrote Treasure Island. Treasure Island was originally titled The Sea Cook. The Sea Cook, a story for boys. It was the original title, which was later on changed to Treasure Island. And this works as a source of The Lord of the Flies, William Golding. So it is an adventure novel based on the adventures of boys, and it also included the pirates. The novel was originally serialized in children's magazine Young Fox. The Young Fox is children's magazine, and the title that was used in those serials was Treasure Island or the Mutiny of Hispaniola. So it was also a quest novel, the work of fiction of quest. And similarly, Daniel Defoe also wrote a work of quest, Robinson Crusoe. Jonathan Swift also wrote Gulliver's Travel, and John Bunyan also wrote Pilgrim's Progress. Next question. Who of the following wrote the famous symbolist movement in literature? This is a work of criticism. So, was it T.S. Eliot, William Butler Yeats, Arthur Simmons, or James Synge? And the correct answer is it was Arthur Simmons who wrote this book, The Symbolist Movement in Literature. Sometimes the people get confused that symbolism is related to William Butler Yeats. William Butler Yeats was related to symbolist movement, but the book Symbolist Movement in Literature was written by Arthur Simmons and it came into view in 1899. And this book is given the credit of bringing French Revolution to the attention of Anglo-American literary critics. So primarily it was written in French, and this book particularly brought French symbolism or symbolism to the English speaking world, that is Anglo-American literary criticism, and then it was developed as a literary movement, symbolist movement in England or in America, which was followed by William Butler Yeats and T.S. Eliot. Arthur Simmons also wrote one of the most important books, The Decadence Movement, the period of 1890s, which is also called the Naughty 90s. So this movement or this particular movement was also brought by Arthur Simmons. And under this book, The Decadent Movement in Literature. The term symbolist was first applied by the critic Jean Morias. He invented the term to distinguish the symbolism from the related decadence of literature of art. In order to differentiate or distinguish one movement from the other, symbolism from decadent movement, that the term symbolist movement was used for the first time by Jean Morias. Symbolism was a reaction against naturalism, realism, and anti-idealistic styles, which were attempts to represent in its gritty particularity, and it was to elevate the humble and the ordinary over the ideal. So basically, what was naturalism or what was idealism that were prevalent in English literature by that time? So symbolism was a reaction against that. It wanted to present the humble life and the ordinary life over the ideal one. Next question, the eccentric and inventive novel using most of the tricks of the postmodernist fiction, all about Mr. H. Hatter, was written by Arun Desai, R.K. Narayan, Salman Rushdie, or was it G.B. Dasani? And the correct answer is it was written by G.B. Dasani. So all about Mr. Hatter came in 1948, and it chronicles the adventures of an Anglo-Malay man in search of wisdom and enlightenment. So it is a quest novel in search of wisdom and enlightenment of Anglo-Malay man. Anglo-Malay man is Mr. Hatter. G.V. Dasani himself said that as far as back in 1951, I said Mr. Hatter was a portrait of a man, the common vulgar species found everywhere, both in the East and in the West. The next question, the name of the literary organ. Literary organ means a kind of magazine of American transcendental movement that viewed its ideology, that published its ideology, the ideology of American transcendental movement. So, was it the Dial, Talquil, Atma, or Spirit? And the correct answer is it was Dial. Dial was a magazine. So, it published in or published between 1840 to 1929. It published many of the views of the people who were related or involved in this American transcendental movement, and it served as the chief publication of the transcendentalists. It was an influential outlet for the modernist literature in English from 1920s to 1929. Members of Hedge Club began talking for creating a vehicle for their essays and reviews in philosophy and religion. Next question, who of the following did describe himself as a classical in literature, royalist in politics, and Anglo-Catholic in religion? It should be corrected here. It was not classical, it was classicist. classicist in literature, royalist in politics, and Anglo-Catholic in religion. So, who was that writer? Was it Thomas Hardy, T.S. Eliot, D.H. Lawrence, or Ezra Pound? It was T.S. Eliot who himself declared. It was no other writer who declared about T.S. Eliot that he was this. It was T.S. Eliot himself who described him or declared himself. T.S. Eliot was born in 1888 and he was baptized in the Church of England in 1927. So he was born in America, Mississippi, Illinois, and he was baptized in the Church of England in 1927. 1928, he became the citizen. He took the citizenship. He took the citizenship of Britain. So he became the citizen of Britain in 1928 after being baptized in 1927 in the Church of England. And after this, after getting the citizenship of Britain, he described or declared himself in the preface to his prose collection for Lancelot Andrewes as that he was classicist in literature, a royalist in politics, and Anglo-Catholic in religion. He was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1948. Next question, A Time to Change was written by P. Lal, William Butler Yeats, Nissim Ezekiel, or Kamala Das. And the correct answer is it was Nissim Ezekiel who wrote A Time to Change. It was a collection, anthology, collection of poems, and it came in 1952. The title poem of the collection, A Time to Change, gives the view or gives a sneak peek into the collection or the kind of poetry he composed in these lines. The pure invention or the perfect, precise communication of the thought. Love reciprocate to a quiver. Flawless doctrines, certainty of God. These are merely dreams, but I am human and must testify to what they mean. So, through these lines, Nissim Ezekiel has given a sneak peek into the kind of themes he has dealt with in this collection, in this anthology. Nissim Ezekiel was awarded Sahitya Academy Award in 1983 for his collection of poems Latter Day Psalms. He was awarded Padma Shri in 1988 and Sahitya Academy Cultural Award in 1983. So Sahitya Academy Award and Sahitya Academy Cultural Award in the same year. Next question, if a writer uses the word Shakespeare to mean the works of Shakespeare, he is using a figure of speech known as synecdoche, simile, irony, or metonymy. And the correct answer is it is metonymy. So synecdoche is when the part is referred to as a whole or the vice versa. The whole is referred to the part. So when we say India have won the match, so we are using synecdoche. India is for Indian players. So India as a unit is referred to Indian players. Or 6 hands were deployed. So part is suggesting the whole. 6 hands means 3 people. 3 people were deployed for the work. When part suggests the whole or whole suggests the part is synecdoche. Simile is when two dissimilar objects are compared on certain points with the words such as, like, sort, type, she is as beautiful as a rose, like. Irony is when there is a difference between the appearance and the reality. We say something else in meaning something else. And metonymy is a change of name. So metonymy is a use of the name of one object or concept for that of another, to which it is closely related, or sometimes of which it is a part of. So we use some object or concept to refer to the person with which it is closely related, just like sceptre. Sceptre is for king. So sceptre is an object, it is closely related to king. So we are using sceptre to refer to king. So in metonymy, what we do, we refer to something, some object, to refer to its user. Just like pen. Pen to refer to the writer. Pen is basically related to writer. So we are not using writer, we are using pen for the writer. So metonymy is change of name. Primarily it is change of name. We use some object to refer to its user. We wish to use the writer, but we are not using writer, we are using pen to refer to the writer. So it is one object or concept for that another to which it is closely related or which it is a part. So Shakespeare, if we use Shakespeare, we refer to the works of Shakespeare. Have you read Shakespeare? So we mean, have you read the works of Shakespeare? So we are changing the name. Next question. In which of Dickens' novels does the child heroine Little Nell figure? Little Nell is one of the major characters that have been drawn by Charles Dickens. So was she in Old Curiosity Shop, Bleak House, David Copperfield, or David Great Expectations? And the correct answer is Little Nell figured in Old Curiosity Shop. And in the novel, Old Curiosity Shop is the name of residence. It seems that it is a shop, but it is the name of residence. Old Curiosity. The novel Old Curiosity Shop and Barnaby Rudge. These are two novels which Dickens published along with short stories in his weekly serial, Master Humphrey's Clock, during 1841 to 42. So these two novels, Barnaby Rudge and Old Curiosity Shop, they were published by Dickens along with the short stories in this serial. It was his own serial. This particular novel, Old Curiosity Shop, is famous for the death scene of Little Nell. And for this very scene, the novel was later on criticized for Dickens' handling of pathos. It was so tragically portrayed and it was so movingly portrayed that it could move anyone out of his nerves. It could wrench the soul of any person who read it. The scene was so movingly portrayed. So it was criticized as well. Queen Victoria read herself this novel and she found it very interesting and cleverly written. So it was her reaction after reading this novel. For her, the novel was very interesting and cleverly written. And these short stories with which these novels were published, they worked as frame stories. Frame story is a companion piece to a story within a story. So it is a story within a story where an introductory or main narrative sets. And because of the intensity of the pathos in this Nell's death scene, that Oscar Wilde said, one would have to have a heart of stone to read the death of little Nell without dissolving into tears. Similarly, A.C. Swinburne called Nell a monster as inhuman as a baby with two heads. Next question. Mrs. Malprop, a lady notorious for misusing words figures in Joseph Andrews, The Rivals, The Tempest, and The Apple Cart. And the correct answer is it was in The Rivals. The Rivals was written by Richard Brinsley Sheridan. And from Mrs. Malaprop, there came the term malapropism. So, malapropism is an act of using an incorrect word in place of the one that is similar in pronunciation. It is also called dogberism. Dogberism and malapropism are the similar words. Dogberism was named after the character Dogberry. Dogberry that was used by Shakespeare in his Much Ado About Nothing. So in the play Much Ado About Nothing, there was a character Dogberry, Officer Dogberry, and then he also had a tendency or a habit to misuse the words. similar to the use of Mrs. Malaprop in The Rivals. So these two characters, Dogberry and Mrs. Malaprop, they made speech errors. The example of Mrs. Malaprop, how she uses or rather misuses the words. She said, illiterate him, quite from your memory. So she wants to use the words obliterate. But instead of using obliterate, she mistakenly used illiterate. Obliterate means to remove. So she wants to say that remove him quite from your memory. So she wanted to use the word obliterate, but because of her tendency to misuse the words, she used illiterate. So this tendency is called malapropism. Let's talk one of the examples from Dogberry. Our watch, sir, have indeed comprehended two auspicious persons. So Dogberry wanted to use apprehended, and he mistakenly used comprehended. So apprehended means to discern, notice, but mistakenly he used the words comprehend, that is to understand. We can have more examples like having one wife is called monotony. So he wanted to use monogamy. Monogamy means a practice of having one wife, but he used mistakenly monotony, and as such he changed the meaning of the sentence as well completely. Other example we can also have, she is as headstrong as an allegory. She wanted to use the word alligator, but mistakenly she used allegory. So malapropism and dogberism is a practice of misusing the words or using incorrect word which has a similar pronunciation or similar spelling. Next question. The slogan Freedom is Slavery is in Jude the Obscure, Animal Farm, 1984 or Brave New World. The correct answer is it is 1984. It was the novel in which the famous slogan Freedom is Slavery was there. The complete slogan I'm telling you, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. So that was the official slogan of the party. The novel was written by George Orwell. Animal Farm was also written by George Orwell. And this novel comes in the category of dystopian novella. This was a short novella, and it comes in the category of dystopia. Dystopia is opposite of utopia. So this official slogan was inscribed in massive letters, in big letters, on the white pyramid of the Ministry of Truth. Ministry of Truth in the novel was in charge of destroying history books, to reflect the party's ideology. The party was the main party, ruling party. Its name was the party. So the novel showcases the totalitarian state, totalitarian government, where the control people are controlled by the use of surveillance, even at the cost of personal privacy. There is no personal privacy. People are monitored everywhere, whether they are sleeping or they are outside. They are at home, they are outside, they are everywhere closely watched. And this is how the party maintains its status quo. So there were three Ministry of Truth, and that was in the charge of destroying books, history books, to reflect party's ideology. So new ideology was given to the people by removing the history books or the old ideology. So whatever the people will have was according to the party's ideology. Oceania was the state, and language was New Speak. New Speak was the language. Country was Oceania, and the mode of holding the power was surveillance. Other ministry was the Ministry of Peace. Ministry of Peace was in charge of overseas war. So they maintained peace by waging wars. And Ministry of Love. This was in charge of torturing the people, political prisoners, torturing the prisoner of wars. So these Ministry of Truth, Ministry of Peace, and Ministry of Love. They worked so that the party line or the ideology of the party was maintained and the control over the people was maintained. So, George Orwell in this novel imagined a state, or he rather reflected the present scenario, the current scenario of his time, how the fascist powers or the authoritative or totalitarian powers were ruling around the world. They were gaining control over the world during World War II. Next question. The play The Lady is Not for Burning was written by John Galsworthy, G.B. Shaw, Camus, and Christopher Fry. And the correct answer is it was Christopher Fry who wrote The Lady is Not for Burning. It was written in 1948 and it is called the romantic comedy in three acts and it was set in 1400. The setting of the novel is 1400 Middle Ages. So it was set near about Middle Ages in approximately 1400 and it reflects the exhaustion and the disappointments and despair of the world following World War II. So it is about two people. One character was war stricken soldier. He wants to die. The other character was the accused who wants to live. Next question. In Swift's Gulliver's Travels, Yahoos are placed in the country of Houyhnhnms, on the island of Lilliput, on the island of Brobdingnag, or on the flying island of Laputa. And the correct answer is Yahoos were placed in the country of Houyhnhnms. The pronunciation is Houyhnhnms. So the novella Gulliver's Travels shows the adventures and journey of Lemuel Gulliver, who was first surgeon and then he became the captain of several ships. The novel is a prose satire on human nature, traveler's tale as a subgenre of literature. Jonathan Swift claimed that he wrote this novel wax the world rather than to divert it. So he wanted to move the world rather than to divert or entertain. He did not want to entertain the people. He wanted to vex, to move them, to disturb their sentiments. The writer John Gay, he remarked that it is universally read from the cabinet council to the nursery. So the novel is in four parts. The first part is the journey on the island of Lilliput. People were 6 inches tall. Second part of the journey was the journey on the island of Brobdingnag. So here the people were as tall as the trees. Third part was on the journey of the island of Laputa and other islands as well. So this was third part. And the fourth part was the journey in the country of Houyhnhnms. Houyhnhnms was a race of talking horses. They are rulers. Horses are rulers. Rulers on this island. And then the ruled one, the creature, the subjects. The subjects were deformed creatures and they were called Yahoos. They resembled human beings. So here the satirical trait lies. These horses were endowed with reasons, logic. The ones who were supposed to have reasons and logic, they lacked, like deformed creatures, the Yahoos. That's why they were being ruled by the horses. The horses were the rulers here in this part. Next question. Sybil was written by Sheridan, Disraeli, Elizabeth Gaskell, or Anthony Trollope, and it was written by Benjamin Disraeli. Disraeli was the Prime Minister of Britain as well. Sybil was also known as The Two Nations. The other title of this novel was The Two Nations as well. It was published in 1845. And this was the second book of the trilogy. And what were the other books of the trilogy? First is Coningsby, second is Sibyl, third is Tancred. And this trilogy celebrates the idea of young England. So the book was designed to describe the condition of the people and two nations of England. So these were two nations of England, the poor and the rich. So the novel was designed to introduce or describe the condition of the poor and of the rich. So through this novel, he wanted to suggest some reforms before his government took the charge. Next question. Who of the following is not associated with the movement known as Expressionism? So was it Van Gogh, Munch, Hilda Doolittle, or Kandinsky? And the correct answer is it was Hilda Doolittle that was not associated with this movement Expressionism. She was associated with the movement Imagism. Rest of the three people were associated with this Expressionism. The term Expressionism was used in the early 20th century to describe a movement in art that was later on in the literature and the theatre and cinema. And its characteristics are boldness, distortion, and forceful representation of the emotions. So, primarily, it was the movement in art, in painting, and it showcased or it expressed emotions, forceful emotions, or distortion of emotions. The epitome of expressionism in German cinema was German cinema. He was Robert Wiens. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. So it is the most important book that shows or that expresses expressionism. English writers who used this form in literature were Wyndham Lewis, W.H. Auden, and Christopher Isherwood. In American drama, it was Eugene O'Neill who used this form, expressionism. Next question. The exact name is the name of the volume of poetry written by A.K. Ramanujan, R. Parthasarathi, K.K.N. Daruwala, or Nissim Ezekiel. And the correct answer it was Nissim Ezekiel who wrote this volume of poetry, the exact name. It is the fifth book of poetry by Nissim Ezekiel. The title is very much appropriate, befitting for the collection, as the poet examines the nature and function of the poet. Exact name for the poet. What is the function and what is the nature of the poet? Function of the poet. So in the volume he suggests and what are his famous functions. He also defines the process whereby images and symbols are used in poetry to give exact names to things and to human emotions. He further clarifies this point in the epigraph of the volume by borrowing some lines from Johann Roman Gymnase. So the lines are: Intelligence, give me the exact name of the things. Let my world be the thing itself, newly created by my soul. So from these lines he got the name of the volume as well, and from these lines he got the philosophy or the kind of suggestions he gave in the volume through these poems. Next question. Who of the following is the author of The Order of Things? Was it Michel Foucault, Derrida, Edward Said, or F.R. Lewis? And the correct answer is it was Michel Foucault who wrote this book, The Order of Things. The book has a subtitle as well, An Archaeology of Human Sciences. So the complete title runs like The Order of Things, An Archaeology of Human Sciences. And this was published in 1966. In this book, he tries to discover the origins of human sciences, which have their roots in life, labor, and language. That is, biology, economics, and linguistics. Here in this book, he developed the thought or the concept of episteme, and he argues that these conditions of discourse have changed over time from one period's episteme to another. So, what does he mean by this term episteme? Episteme is a philosophical term that refers to a principled system of understanding and scientific knowledge. The term comes from the ancient Greek verb epistemia, and which means to know, to understand, and to be acquainted with. And the term epistemology comes from episteme. Epistemology means the origin of words. So he developed the concept of episteme in this book, The Order of Things. Next question. The Edible Woman is written by Robert Crochet, Margaret Atwood, Alice Munro, or Iris Murdoch. And the correct answer is it was Margaret Atwood who wrote the novel Edible Woman. It was published in 1969, and the novel established Margaret Atwood as a writer of established canon. This novel is based on the concept of metaphorical cannibalism. Cannibalism means human eating, human flesh eating. Atwood herself calls this novel a proto-feminist rather than feminist tradition, rather than in feminist tradition. So it was proto-feminist fiction rather than a feminist one, rather than in feminist tradition. So proto-feminism means it anticipates modern feminism in an era when the concept of feminism was still unknown, that is before 20th century. So it anticipated second wave feminism that aimed for increased equality for women. That is to say that she should gain some more rights or equality, not just enfranchisement, that is the right to vote. So she just wanted to say that women need not just enfranchisement or the right to vote, they want more equality in the terms of social, political, economical, religious matters. So the novel gives the concept of proto-feminism. Next question. Okonkwo is the hero of the novel Disgrace written by James Coetzee, Anthills of Savannah by Achebe, Things Fall Apart by Achebe, or Man of the People by Achebe. And the correct answer is it was The Things Fall Apart by Achebe. So it was written by Nigerian writer, Nigerian novelist Chinua Achebe, and it was his debut novel, the first novel by Chinua Achebe, and it was published in 1958. The novel chronicles the pre colonial life in the southern part of Nigeria and about the arrival of the Europeans during late of 19th century. Arrival of the Europeans during 19th century. So the protagonist of the novel is Okonkwo. He was the wrestling champion. He belonged to the clan of Umofia. So this was his family, Umofia, this community he belongs to, and then he was a wrestling champion. The novel has a sequel as well, No Longer at Ease. The title of the novel comes from Second Coming of William Butler Yeats. The title No Longer Is comes from Journey of Magi by T.S. Eliot. Next question. Who of the following writers does make good use of Yoruba culture? So was it Ngugi wa Thiong'e, Nadine Gordimer, Chinua Achebe, or Bol Shoinka? And the correct answer is it was Bol Shoinka who used Yoruba culture in his writings. So Yoruba is the largest ethno-linguistic group in Nigeria and the rest part of Africa. So it is a language that is broadly spoken in Yoruba culture or the people. The first novel where Yoruba language was used by Bol Shoinka was The Forest of the Thousand Dreamers. The Forest of the Thousand Dreamers. The first novel to use Yoruba language, and Volshenka himself translated this into English. Next question. Two Cheers for Democracy is written by E.M. Forster, Bernard Shaw, Graham Greene, or Amartya Sen. And the correct answer is it was E.M. Forster who wrote Two Cheers for Democracy. So it is his second collection of essays. It was not a novel or a drama or any other thing. So it was the collection of essays that was published in 1951. The collection contains versions of Forster's anti-Nazi broadcast of 1940s and as well as his defense of individualism. So the collection contains some of the versions of E.M. Forster's anti-Nazi broadcasts and his defense of individualism. In this collection, he famously says that I have found by experience that the arts act as an antidote against our present troubles and also as a support to our common humanity. Next question. The Heart of the Matter, a famous novel, is written by William Golding, Graham Greene, Anita Desai, or Saul Bellow. And it was Graham Greene who wrote this novel, famous novel, The Heart of the Matter. Heart of the Matter is an autobiographical novel and it details the life changing moral crisis. Moral crisis for Henry Scobie. Henry Scobie is the protagonist of the novel, and indirectly it was Graham Greene himself. So it is based on the novel is based on his former British intelligence officer's experience. Formerly he was a British intelligence officer. It is based on his own experience of his former British intelligence officer in Freetown. The book won James Stade Black Memorial Prize in 1948. Anthony Burgess praises the book as Green's ability to encapsulate the essence of an exotic setting in a single book is exemplified in the heart of the matter. And the last question of this part is who of the following did translate Kalidas Shakuntala in English? Was it T.S. Eliot, Henry James, William Jones, or James Prinsep? And the correct answer is it was William Jones who translated Shakuntala of Kalidas. So it is also known as the recognition of Shakuntala. Shakuntala was the first Indian drama to have been translated, and the title he gave to Shakuntala was Shakuntala or the Fatal Ring. So the title William Jones gave to the translation was Shakuntala or the Fatal Ring. So that is all for now. Hopefully this video has cleared some of your doubts related to the questions and their answers. We'll come back very soon with the concluding part of this TGT question paper. Till then, keep learning, stay motivated, like this video and share it among your friends. And if you have not subscribed to this channel, please make it as a point to subscribe right now. Thanks for watching.